I'd like to recognize the chair of the full committee, Dr. Foxx.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm interested in hearing what the ranking member has to say, and finding that there really is a different worldview as far as education is concerned. I thank our witnesses. Mr. Horn, in any well-functioning market, which education is, the price you see reflects the quality of the product being sold and is the actual price you will pay. Unsurprisingly, this is not the case in our poorly functioning post-secondary education market. The rise of strategic tuition discounting has completely distorted the connection between price and quality, and the results in two identical students paying widely different prices simply because one indicated an interest in more than one school on his or her FAFSA. In your testimony, you highlight several colleges that have moved away from the opaque pricing scheme and towards models that are transparent to students and families. Can you elaborate on these alternative pricing models, including how they benefit students and institutions?
Certainly. We've seen four, I would say, innovations in transparency and pricing. One is to move to a subscription model. So like Western Governors University, which now serves some 160,000 or so students with competency-based online education. We've seen institutions move to a guarantee of a 4-year pricing model up front so that there's no surprise from year to year in what will change. This was first popularized with scholarships and athletics and has moved to the actual price tag itself. A third one has been tuition resets, so moving away from the net tuition discounting model that you mentioned to say, hey, let's actually move down to the actual price itself. And then fourth, I'll mention, is also a work college model where you're partnering with employers so that students, as they are working and gaining educational credit for that work, are also getting wages that pay for the tuition, like Paul Quinn College.
Thank you. If we can learn anything from this hearing, it's that institutions can change for the betterment of themselves, students, and taxpayers. With that, I request unanimous consent to submit for the record testimony from the University of Dayton, which has been a leader in offering upfront guaranteed prices to students, resulting in lower debt and increases in retention, completion, and enrollment. And I ask unanimous consent to submit testimony from Lenore Ryan Universities in North Carolina, which has committed itself to transparent pricing and recently underwent a tuition reset. I commend President Fred Witt of Lenore Ryan University for his leadership in implementing transparent tuition prices, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Leshley, at the beginning of this Congress, several committee Republicans introduced the Pell Act. The bill extends Pell Grants to high-quality, short-term workforce programs. Do you have any feedback for this committee on whether or not the Pell Act's tuition to earnings metric serves as a strong measure of a program's effectiveness?
Thank you. It's a very thoughtful, appealing piece of work, this earnings metric that's been drafted into the Pell Act. It looks at the actual wages that students experience and compare them to a baseline. In this case, it's a multiplier of the poverty line. But it essentially gets at initially this thing we've been talking about, value-added earnings, and measures whether students do better economically because they go to college. And then very importantly, it compares that wage gain to the price that students paid to go. And it polices underperformance on that metric, and very importantly, sets incentives for institutions to both lower costs and to drive up wages.
Thank you. I'd like to highlight an analysis by the Nonpartisan Urban Institute that found that, quote, the Pell Act's economic value test would be a substantially higher bar for programs to clear than the draft GE rule, end quote. And if my colleagues are serious about accountability, the Pell Act provides a stronger metric that can be applied to all programs. I request unanimous consent to submit this analysis into the record also.
No objection.
Dr. Gillen, under the department's proposed gainful employment rule, a hypothetical career education where graduates earn $35,000 and owe $110 per month on their loans would be considered to have affordable debt and receive a pass under the Biden administration's own GE rule. Yet under the new income-driven repayment plan, the $35,000 in loans is somehow now unaffordable debt that needs to be canceled. The new IDR plan would allow that some borrowers to pay just $9 per month and ultimately get his or her loans canceled. Do you think these rules are inconsistent?
Yeah, I think that's a accurate assessment. The problem is that they're using different poverty line cutoffs. So the new student loan repayment plan uses a cutoff of 225% of the poverty line, whereas the gainful employment's likely going to be using 150 in the final version. And so, but they're trying to measure the same thing, affordable debt. And so having two different baselines is illogical.
Thank you. I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.